And one day you might be sitting there at Y'all Fest.
Maybe one day.
And if I'm not there, I'm dead. Like...
Welcome back to another episode of Bright and Ambitious, the podcast dedicated to helping you write, revise, and edit your next story. I am your producer, Joel Seymour. Kailey is a little bit under the weather right now, so she's not going to be joining me for the intro. Despite her sickness, though, she was able to have a really fantastic conversation with one of our close writing friends. E.H. Taylor, also known as our very good friend Hanan, has been hard at work for the past 5 years writing her debut novel, The Heart Box. Kailey and I had a really wonderful opportunity to help beta read and give comments as she was working on several of her drafts. It is a story that we have very much fallen in love with, as you will be able to tell by Kailey's excitement throughout the episode. But that excitement isn't the only thing in the episode. They talked about the benefits of beta reading and how to make the most out of the notes that your readers give you. On top of that, they also had a really valuable conversation about avoiding the pitfalls of fast fiction, what that means, and how you can make the most out of your writing time. I learned a lot from this conversation, and I think you will too. So without further ado, let's get right into the conversation.
Welcome, Hanan. I'm very happy that you're here. Just to kind of start off, I would love for you to talk more about the Heart Box.
Oh my goodness. So the Heart Box is, I'll embrace the label of a romantasy novel. And it follows protagonist. Her name is Catherine, and when she was a child, she found a beating heart in a box. And so on a dare, sort of goes in the woods to see if it's still there. And she finds a monster in its place in an empty box. This monster, of course, owns the heart. He, of course, is a fairy. And there's this mystical tie between the two of them because she touched his heart as a child and sort of took care of it. And so they go on this adventure through fairy to try to unravel this tie between them and figure out who took his heart in the first place.
It's so good.
Well, thanks.
I'm surprised that you said it in such a dry way. I'm realizing that might sound harsh, but like
no,
to me, I'm just like this. It definitely is a romantasy, but I think it falls out of the expectations you typically have of a romantasy novel, particularly with like how their relationship blossoms and the ending, which I won't give away. And I absolutely love the voyage that they take, and like it's so good. This is like my favorite book that no one else has ever read. And so like I need you to publish this.
I know. Maybe one day. We're hoping. And that's why we're here to talk, because you know, you've been writing this for a while now. This isn't your first draft. No. Mm-mm.
No. And how long have you been writing The Heart Box?
Oh my goodness. So I came up with a concept during the pandemic. So that would have been 2020. And it sort of became my writing exercise. I drafted a whole young adult novel during the pandemic. It was about nymphs in the Blue Ridge Mountains.
How did that?
I know. I've thought about going back and revisiting it, but not right now. It taught me a lot about the writing process. And I came up with the idea of the Heart Box, and then it blossomed from there. I guess I really drafted it right after I graduated from undergrad, and I was missing like that rigor.
Yeah.
Just having all this stuff to do. And I think I drafted it in like over the course of like 3 months, which was a lot.
Yeah.
With a full-time job, but it was a lot, but I stuck with it with my schedule. So the draft that I sent you guys to read was probably about draft 2.
Okay.
I had rewritten a fair amount in between my first draft and what I presented to you guys. It was above a proofread is what I mean.
Yeah.
And then I got edits from you guys and I completely rearranged a lot of stuff. Several scenes, I love the way they look now. They look significantly different than the beginning.
Different, but in a good way, question mark.
Yes, very much so. One of the scenes I love the first draft that I came up with, but now I love it even more. But yeah, so it's changed. I think right now we're on draft 4 or 5.
That's okay.
So yeah, it's a lot, but it's a process.
It is. And when you say like 4 and 5, like, is this a perfection situation where you're like what is stopping you from being like, this is complete?
Yeah, I think my best friend would say that. My best friend Carrie would say it's like Carrie. You're not okay with it not being perfect, which I think a lot of people would say that like there is no perfect draft. Like there's always something that you could improve. It's just you're trying to pick your stopping point. But there are a couple of issues just in plot that I think I could still address. Mm-hmm. And then sound. I'm obsessed with syntax. If you read my Goodreads reviews, you know that I'm obsessed with syntax. Which a lot of people, I was blessed that everyone who read the book was like, it has a sound. I can hear your voice through it, which is like half the battle.
Yes.
But there are still parts of it that I'm like, that could be better. So that's line editing.
Okay.
But there are a couple more developmental edits that I think I would want to just tweak before I had handed over to an agent or whoever else.
Okay. And so for like those developmental changes, like what has like either stopped you from like completing those, or are you like waiting for inspiration to strike?
A lot of it was waiting. So I just started grad school. So that whole journey was pretty chaotic.
Right. Understandable.
So it's like been my project that I work on in my spare time. A lot of times I'll work on it over holidays. So I did a little bit over the summer. In fact, I kind of had set it aside for an entire year.
Okay.
That was my plan, just because sometimes I think you need fresh eyes on something. So if you're stepping away from, if it's just an hour, if it's a day, if it's a week, a month, a year, whatever, for me, it was a year. And I could see, there were parts of it that I was like, this is actually really good. And like, I would be totally fine sending this off. And there were other parts that like I saw with fresh eyes. And I was like, no, I kind of see like where my alpha reader or beta reader was like, this doesn't work for me. And I was reluctant to change it. I saw where it needed to change.
Yeah. I'm so thankful that I got to beta read it, right?
I'm grateful for you.
Like, oh my gosh. I don't know how fast I went through that book, but I know I was dedicated. I don't know. You kind of had a very interesting journey where, you've been writing this since 2020.
Yeah.
You were done with the first draft, and then you got some huge improvements, and then you're like, I'm ready for some people to look at this. So like, walk me through how you like set up and structured your beta reading.
So I started by thinking through people that I knew who read, and they read critically. So as I was writing it in real time, my best friend, like,
shout out to Carrie.
Yeah, Carrie read what I wrote. She was reading it in real time just because I was insecure, I think, a little bit. I still am. I have that kinship with the protagonist, Catherine, because she's a poet. She's a novice, but she's very insecure of her writing. And that's a big part of the Heart Box, is this story that she doesn't want to let go of. And because writing, I mean, you're pouring yourself out and then you're handing it to someone else to consume. So it can be daunting. But yeah, I had her read it in real time. And then I thought, after I got my third draft in order, I was like, okay, now who are my friends who have either written a book? So I sent it to Kailey, or my friends who write Goodreads reviews or read compulsively. Like my friend Allie has an English degree. Megan reads all the time. Carrie writes her own reviews, all people that I trusted, and let them have it, which was a big step in and of itself.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, like that took a lot of trust. Yeah. When we were adding comments, did you resist the urge to like look at every single one, or how did that go?
Yeah, at first I would start reading them, and then I was like, okay, no, you should let them get all the way through. And it was helpful. My friend Megan, actually, and this is like one of my most prized possessions, she like kept a journal while she read it. So I have like her handwritten notes of her chapter of what she thought. And they were super helpful because I think that's the goal with alpha beta reading, is to come up with the things that everybody's noticing. So there were several scenes that all of you noticed, well, this doesn't work for me. Or several parts about her character that didn't work for you. And it didn't work for all of you. So I knew, okay, this is something that I need to go back and fix or address.
So you're kind of like mentioning a little bit of what was most helpful during the feedback, mostly like what people kind of congruently agreed on. What was some of the stuff that you could like easily discard?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think back to, I just read an article that Alex E. Harrow wrote, who she's like probably my favorite like current author. And she was talking about through editing that there are some things that you as the creator are allowed to say, no, that's not how I intended it. And you just go with it.
Okay.
And so, you know, that like empowered me a little bit. I was like, oh, okay. Because there were aspects, especially, I think with Megan, she read like a whole chapter. And so like she was able to like sort of look bird's eye at the whole chapter, but somebody like Carrie, who was editing real time, and didn't necessarily go back, it was helpful to like ignore some of the comments that I knew. I was like, okay, this is a plot question that gets resolved in like 2 or 3 pages. So I was looking more so for like big developmental issues. So yeah, ignoring some of the nitpicky things. And sometimes you can tell when something's a preference. Because Catherine, I think, was supposed to come off not as stupid, but maybe as a little naive and idealistic. So there were a couple comments sometimes that a couple people left. It's like, dang, Catherine, you're being stupid. And it's like, well, yeah, she's being stupid because she's idealistic and wants to, you know, believe all these things. She's the child in the story. So, yeah.
Yeah, as long as she's like being consistent for a character, that's the important part. Even if we don't agree, we have to like at least understand why she's doing this.
Right. So you're looking for patterns. That's what you're looking for, is patterns in the comments.
Do you think you could have done without beta readers or outside feedback?
That's a great question. Probably not. Part of that, it goes to show that when you get other people to read your work, people get excited about it. So it encourages you to keep going. But I think that you need another set of eyes. There's a reason why most books, are put through an editing process, that your agent is going to get you set up with an editor right away. It's because we have blind spots. And if I had not let my beta readers have my manuscript, I would not have known that. Like, I kind of knew that Catherine didn't come across the right way, but I wouldn't have known exactly why Catherine came across the wrong way. I wouldn't have known that she wasn't introspective enough, that I didn't put enough of her thoughts in my first or second draft. And I wouldn't have known that different parts of it didn't make sense, because it made sense when I read it, because it came from my head. But, you know, you let somebody else have a chance at it, and you learn some more things that you probably wouldn't have known before.
I totally agree with that. I still can't get over like just how inept I was at writing when I first started.
Oh yeah, like I read my first, oh my gosh, like that first full novel, and I'm like, man, this is
But you wrote it. You did it.
We wrote it start to finish. So it taught me a lot about writing, but like if I were to, I wouldn't edit it. I would just rewrite it.
Yeah, no, there's just some things that you just don't realize. I definitely not necessarily failed in the aspect, because I did have beta readers for the first book, but I don't think I had as much of a rounded group of people. Essentially, I needed more people at the table, right?
Right. Yeah. And if there are different like databases that I could use to do another round of beta readers, I don't know yet if I would do it again. I think I might be in this spot where I don't have to do it again. But if I felt like I need to, I know there's databases you can get people who'll do it for free. Or in exchange, you do it for somebody else. So there are other people who write, so they're thinking that way, but obviously you don't know what you're going to get. So
yeah. I know that there's Discord groups.
Yeah.
But I'm not brave enough for that because I feel like I'm like really critical, and I don't know. I feel like that might be too fast, too quickly for an introduction.
I know, and I do. It's hard to when you're super uber duper perfectionist, to hand your work off and then for you to critique somebody else's, because it's like, well, what level are we doing? Are we talking like everything? I'm marking everything with my red pen.
Yeah.
Or
and I'm definitely an everything kind of person.
Right.
I feel like the communication is key, right? Like you have to be like, these are the things I really want to focus on. Line edits, like you can, or like I don't care about those.
Right.
Like it's a fine line where you want to get the people you trust because you know you want them to be honest with you, but they're going to do it in a polite way.
Right.
But you also don't want to have like no one say anything negative at all, because then that's like another whole other issue.
Right.
You're just like, no, like the only thing that's perfect is the Bible. Hello, like come on.
Right.
What were the largest changes you made from our beta reading comments?
The passages that look the most different are the first 3 chapters. We talked about, like when you're querying, oftentimes the first thing the agent will ask for is your first 3 chapters.
Yes.
So you want to make sure those are like super polished. And if I'm being honest right at the moment, like that's one of the biggest reasons I have not queried it, is because I know that the first 3 chapters are not right.
Really?
I just know that the first chapter, it's better, but it's not the best I can get it.
Okay.
Which is super hard. Joel actually helped me a lot with the first chapter.
Shout out to Joel.
Yeah, so Joel only read like I think the first part of it, but that was super helpful because he was like even a better, like I'm just looking at it the way that an agent would. I just read the first part. Yeah. And this is what I've gathered from it. So the first chapter looks quite different. And there were different scenes that got cut. And especially if they didn't work for the characterization, those notes were really important to me. They were things that had to change. And there's still one scene later on that I'm just not certain about. But the biggest change is first half.
How did you overcome those growing pains? Because like, did you move things to a document when you deleted them, quote unquote, or?
Yeah, I started a completely new one.
Oh,
because I copied it over. So I made a copy.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of like, okay, and you just delete it and you just start drafting again.
A lot of surgery.
Oh my goodness. It was very daunting at first because you're compiling all those notes and then you have this big manuscript and it's like, it's over 300 pages if you put it in the right spacing and
right. Yeah.
It's just a behemoth, but, it's something that has to be done. I always think about when I was in 3rd grade, we would do, she called it story surgery. And it was, I know, it was
iconic.
An exercise to demonstrate, like when you put sentences that don't logically make sense in the paragraph. And so you're like literally cutting your sentences out and gluing them back to where they go. And so that's what you have to do as you're doing story surgery. There were a couple scenes that I ended up like sort of moving, or saying, I'm going to drop this hint later, or I'm going to drop this hint earlier. So that's the story surgery that has to go on, as painful as it is, but it makes it better in the end.
I love that it's compared to surgery because that's exactly how it feels every single time.
Right.
When you got all of that feedback, like, you said that you dropped it for a year. Like, did you look through the entire book and all the comments and kind of synthesize through them and then let the book go? Or how did that shake out?
I took all of the comments and tracked the patterns, and I made like my document, my list. I started with pen and paper, and then I typed out a list, and that I edited with that list. So before I stepped away for a year, I sat down and I edited it. I think once developmentally, and then once I did the fine-tooth comb line edit.
I think I've mentioned before on this podcast, or at least in conversation, that I typically go through like 3 drafts for my first trilogy. But I mean, in all honesty, when I started in 2016, there was a completely different story.
Right.
So if I really count how many iterations it's been, it gets up there.
It's difficult because writing's a process. I thought it was so funny at orientation last week for graduate school. My professor was talking about, it's like, how many drafts do you think you need to come up with a good product? And she was just like, don't you dare submit your first draft. She was like, no, that your 5th draft is where it gets really good. Because you're thinking critically, about and examining your work. So writing is a process. It's not just I'm writing down the story. I got to look at it and really make sure everything's the right way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, I'm actually, okay, so this is actually really interesting because I'm reading another novel right now. I'm an aspiring author that I'm mentoring. And like the longer like I'm going through, like there's less and less comments that I'm adding. But I'm noticing like, oh my gosh, like there's so many different threads that kind of like peter out.
Yes.
And so like, I feel like that's the biggest one is like, as you're continuously writing and you're finding the story, you also need to make sure that like you're threading it continuously without being too repetitive. And that can also be a balance.
Oh yeah, that's a tough one. And I can tell just with all my drafts that most of the work I do is on the front end. Because I was figuring myself out. I didn't know what I was doing.
That's okay.
You have that. And yeah, that's right. Is you have to be okay with it. It's not going to be perfect and you're going to be wrong. But it's a process. And so you're right. It's just making sure that your breadcrumb trail worked throughout the entire plate.
Oh, I love that. I love how you said that. The whole plate. Sorry. I got obsessed with that.
Oh, my trail.
I love it. I mean, hey. The Heart Box is a journey.
Yeah.
I feel like
it's the quest.
It is
the hero's
a quest. It's so, y'all, it's so good.
I'm blushing.
We're talking about perfection and that, it's something that needs to be improved on. But guess who could tell you what to do to change, and then they'll sign you on? A literary agent.
Yeah, I know. It's so hard.
I'm actually ploying. This whole episode is just me trying to convince you.
Push.
To send your first 3 chapters to a literary agent.
Go on, go.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so we're talking about 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th drafts.
Right. Unfortunately.
It's part of the process. Like it's difficult to let go. Like I think that's a biggie. And you're mentioning like, there's some developmental stuff that you're just waiting to kind of get solidified. There's not an issue with that. I feel like honestly, like you're teaching me a lot about not hurrying right now.
Yeah. And I feel like that's such a difficult thing to do because, like, we live in the age, I call it fast fiction. I don't know if anybody else has coined that term. But
I love
we have
it.
Fast fashion, know? Like, that's kind of what the publishing industry is going toward.
No,
and
absolutely.
So, like, there's no respect for authors like Samantha Shannon, who takes just such a long time to write her books. And they're so good. When you get a book, they're so good. But people want something right now. It's like, but we don't, writing's a process. We have to take our time. So if it takes that author more than a year to churn out a book, we shouldn't rush them.
No, yeah. I can agree with you on that because it is very easy, especially as another author, to be like, oh, I'm not publishing anything right now. I'm falling behind. And I'm like, behind what though?
Right.
Behind whom? Myself. Like, I am impressed by people who can publish like a book a year. But that is not me. And that doesn't seem to be us. How do you remain so calm and unhurried with this project?
A lot of it's faith-based. So for me, it's knowing that, it's like, go off, queen.
Go.
It's knowing that the Lord will let that happen when it needs to happen. And so approaching things prayerfully, and like praying for the courage to submit to an agent, because that will be, and praying that like my pride and perfectionism won't like keep me from ever doing it. But yeah, that for me, it's faith-based, the being calm about it and not comparing myself to others. And also just admitting that I am a writer. I do write. I might not be a published author, but I am a writer. So, taking treasure in that instead of, dwelling on the fact that it hasn't happened.
That's incredible, Hanan. Like, honestly, I've been trying to be a little less hurried, right?
Yeah.
And there are days where I fail, and there are days where I succeed. And I'm gonna have to keep what you said to heart, because it's true. Like,
cut yourself some grace. Like you're an image bearer, and you just like God has given you grace. It's something that we're supposed to do for enjoyment. And it can turn into worship. That's that with the themes and things I play with. Yes, it turns into worship. And so like if you're not enjoying it, if you're hurried, you're just not going to be focused on what you need to be focused on. So yeah, it's for enjoyment and self-expression, and so hurry just ruins that. You're panicked.
Yeah. Thinking about what you mentioned about fast fiction, like I know since you are someone who is very brave and reads all of these Red Tower books. And other publishing companies are also doing it too. Yeah. I shouldn't just call out Red Tower like that. But like I know you don't want to publish just to publish.
Right.
What do you want this book to be?
Yeah, I want to pass it off in a spot that it's as best as I can get it. That this is the best I've come up with. This is the best I can do. I need an editor, someone with professional, someone to guide me. And I, at this point, don't feel as if it's like quite there. I think we're close, but I don't think we're quite there. And handing it off to somebody who'll take care of it.
Yes.
Like I just finished Shield of Sparrows, which is actually a pretty good book, by the way.
Okay.
Has some great concepts. Throwing me back to classic YA. But the whole time I was thinking, oh, if only they had just gotten this woman a good editor. That was all I could think, is if they'd gotten another set of eyes on it. Because you can tell, but it just, they read like first, second drafts. And in my opinion, that's not what should be published. That what's published are things that are just really puzzled over, and people take care with them.
Yeah, you need to take care of your writing. Like the fact that, and going back to how you're mentioning, like it's something that you should enjoy. It's not something that you should just like produce for other people.
Right.
Despite your trepidation, have you like looked at any literary agents or examined the publishing world?
I have. So I know the process, and I know that now would not be a great time because everybody's on vacation. Querying in August is not a good idea. But I know the process. I know when you read books, authors oftentimes will write thank their agent in their acknowledgments. Yeah. So I read something that's similar and I sort of jot that name down, or I keep that book on a certain shelf for later. But yeah, and keeping my eye on different trends, I guess. This agent really likes this work and this work is popular right now, or this work is really similar to mine.
That's so smart.
My work is similar. They might like it.
Yeah. And one day you might be sitting there at Y'all Fest. And
maybe one day.
The editor's going to be right there helping you get your book set up.
Maybe one day.
And if I'm not there, I'm dead.
We're going to have a fun time.
Oh my god.
All of us together. But behind the table instead of in front of it this time.
Nah, I'm gonna be in front of the table. Like I want, like I'm self-published. I was like, I'm gonna just do this my way. I want you to be like in Barnes and Noble special edition, sprayed edges.
Maybe one day.
Maybe one day. God willing, I'm praying for it. Is there any other editing comments that you have that you would love to share with me and people who are trying to write their second, third, fourth drafts?
Nothing really comes to mind. Maybe the like the old poster of the little cat and it's the hang in there. Because writing's a process. It can be frustrating, but I guess it's important you remember your why. I think with anything that it's going to take a long time, you remember your why. So I remember these stories that I loved as a child, the need that I feel for a story like the one I've written. And so when I, take a deep breath and I come back to it, because it's okay to take breaks, I just remember why. Why did I write this in the first place? What's the theme I'm looking at here?
You are really giving me a whole sermon. You don't even realize it.
Yeah. Sometimes we have to talk ourselves up too. It's like, like trying to get like a little kid to like walk towards you. It's like, come on. You can do it. You can do it.
Aww. Yeah. I love that. Well, the reason why I said that too is like, remember, because it's so easy to forget with thinking about God, like just remember what he does for you and what he has done and what he gives you, like this passion and love for writing. And he gives you this story. He gives you your interest in these other stories that inspire you. And so remember, because it's easy to forget. So in that case, instead of doing these very intense interview questions, I'm going to ask you some even harder ones. Not actually. I didn't mean to actually scare you. It's like these fun random questions that I do at the end. The first question that I always ask is, what is your favorite drink to have next to you while you write?
Ooh, I really like matcha.
Ooh. We have a matcha fan.
I know. I love matcha. I know people are like, it tastes like grass, but I really like it.
You are allowed to. I will let you have that because I don't like matcha, but I am getting a cat. And I'm naming him Matcha in like a week.
As you should.
What was the last book you gave 5 stars? Because it wasn't, one of my favorite books, The Gracie or anything like that.
All right, we're going to have to open up Goodreads to answer this question. Ooh, yuck, there's textbooks in here now.
Put textbooks on your Goodreads?
Absolutely.
You know what?
I am not letting anything get past me.
I respect. You really do love it for the game.
Yeah. Oh, it was a long time ago.
Oh, it's been a long time ago.
I know, the summer was kind of full of dry reads. The Favorites by Lane Fargo.
Ooh.
So I normally don't give retellings 5 stars. Shocker. Okay. But I am super critical. It's a Wuthering Heights retelling, which if you know me, you're kind of like, oh my gosh, Hanan, that's your favorite book like ever. And you gave a retelling 5 stars. It just, you could tell the care that she took with the original content, like with the music references that are in it, and like all the songs they talk about are just so great. But it's well written. The story is great. Music's great. Yeah, it blew my socks off. I was like, what?
I had no idea that it was a Wuthering Heights like retelling.
It made me contemplate what constitutes a good retelling, which is good because like I dabble sometimes in like fairy tale retellings, and it's like, well, what makes a good retelling? It's not that it's completely faithful to its original, but it's that it captures the essence and it respects the original. So
yeah. Now the last question I have to ask, because I've been consistent enough with all my other podcast episodes. Okay. So what is a song you've connected with the Heartbox? Like, give me one.
Oh, okay.
Or several if you need to.
Okay, I think there's 2.
Okay, I'm here for it.
Oh, no, 3. So sorry.
That's okay.
Well, one of them's instrumental. So if you've read Heartbox, or even if you know anything about Labyrinth, the whole like hallucination as the world falls down part, like, oh my gosh, epitomizes like all the things that happen. But if I had to pick two that like really stick, Heart's a Mess.
Oh my gosh.
I know that song. How do you pronounce the artist's name?
I pronounce it as Goyte.
Okay.
Goyte.
I don't know.
You introduced me to this song,
Yay!
And I'm obsessed. I'm so glad you mentioned it.
I just feel like it embodies the Heart Box so well. And then the other one is Anyone Who Had a Heart by Dionne Warwick. That one is also really good. And I just find it really ironic when you couple it with the story. And then my last note, sorry, I have one more, is Dance Macabre, but it's the Oh Hellos version because it's kind of like folksy, which if you've read Heartbox, you know that it sort of takes place in Appalachia. So yeah, but those all, I think, those 5 really just encompass the story.
I don't have any other questions. Did you have any other thoughts or questions for me?
It was nice. I hadn't really considered and thought over like the journey in a hot minute because it took, oh my gosh, like it's been 5 years now. Working on it for 5 years.
Yeah.
I do have a website. It's book-fairies. Yeah. It has some of my old writing samples on it. It's October's upon us, almost-ish. I wrote a novella. Yeah, I wrote a novella. It's called The Darkening of Ophelia Richter. It's pretty good. It's dark. It's gothic. It was my early 20s. And then, but one of my, if not my most favorite thing I've written it's called Sugar Plum, and it's a Christmas novelette. Yeah, and it's a retelling of The Nutcracker, but it's like short. It has some of the same themes as The Heart Box.
How have I not read these?